Good afternoon, everybody.
Oh, it's afternoon?
That's right.
Okay.
We're letting people take a break from listening to it before they sleep, and now you're doing a little afternoon listen of the Sound Direction podcast, a menswear podcast without the stuff. I just said it twice.
Hey everybody, I got news for you. You slept in too late, now you're late for work. Stop the podcast, go to work. Oh my god.
Do you think people listen to us at work?
If they do, I'm going to tell their boss they should get fired. Don't listen to podcasts at work. It's distracting. It's time theft from your management. Which is my least favorite crime.
Is time theft like the genre of movie that Avengers Endgame was?
Yeah, actually it was.
Okay. I think,
and that's why you shouldn't. I mean, that's why you shouldn't do it at work. I mean, fucking going back to a bunch of different like points of New York or whatever. Don't do it.
You'll get fired if you do it.
You'll get fired.
Yeah. Hey, where were
to be
you?
clear, I
sorry.
think time theft is cool, so feel free to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, we think that your employers suck, and if they're stealing value from your labor, then you'll steal time from them, from their lifespan.
It's like are you seen the movie In Time?
Yeah, we keep referencing it on the podcast
because it's the best movie ever made. I've never actually seen it.
No, I've only seen.
I just know the plot. Yeah,
it's the one where it's on their wrist at all times, right? Their remaining lifespan.
They have their wall. They have like a digital display on their wrist that shows how much time they have left, and that's 1-to-1 with how much money they have. So.
So wait, as time goes,
that's the future of menswear.
Yeah, I was gonna say as time goes on, your money goes down, but
yes,
kind of makes
sense.
So
the economy is constantly disappearing.
Yeah, so how do you and you get more from other people? I mean, I guess it is kind of like a commentary on like the rich people get to live longer and they have the resources, right? Like that's
they all get to look
deal.
like Vincent Kartheiser for decades.
I remember seeing him in the social media documentary, and I'm like, man, what happened, dude? Like,
yeah, I mean, he hasn't done much acting since Mad Men. I think he's like done a couple like indie short films. He was in a TV show where he played like a Nazi collaborator or something.
Makes sense for what he looks like.
Yeah, like he plays like an American businessman who like collaborates with the Nazis. But that's all I know that he's been in since Mad Men.
I can't imagine anything else. I mean, other than that social media doc where it's like a slight documentary with like a narrative built right in, right? And he plays like his addiction to social media, like the character's addiction or something. Oh no, he plays like the algorithm or something like that, right?
I haven't seen that one. It's like it's like In Time, where I haven't seen it.
Every movie we haven't seen is like In Time.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of time, by the way, I'm Ethan. I'm Wong.
And I'm Spencer Adi.
That's right. For you, last name. This is the Menswear podcast. First 5 minutes, we're just chilling, talking about stuff. Yeah, cold open. We had to close that fridge. That should be my next monogram. After don't tell the doctor. better close that fridge.
Okay,
so that's the new one. Hey guys, start that in your conversations and credit that. Say that's from Ethan, and they go, "Who's Ethan?"
Well, when does that phrase like come in? Like what context do you use that phrase?
When things are getting out of hand, maybe. Like,
okay.
Oh man, better close that fridge.
Yeah.
And they say
the fridge
it's
is
winter.
like Pandora's box. You just want to close that thing.
Yeah, anything you want to close is a Pandora's box.
Like, and anything you haven't seen is In Time.
Yeah, like you're using the restroom and someone forgets to close. Hey, better close the Pandora's box. And the guy's taking a shit's like, what are you talking about, man?
Letting all the evils out.
And that's what we call shit.
Yeah, that's where it came from. Pandora's box. Nobody took a shit until Pandora opened that box. And then she opened that box, and all of a sudden, some guy somewhere was like, "Whoa, this feels weird. What's going on?"
Yeah, and that man was DJ Brown Note.
That man was DJ Brown Note. I gotta invent a sound to get this feeling out.
God damn. Oh man, I don't even know if we've explained that on the pod before, but maybe it's a stream thing.
I mean, apparently, like, we just independently came up with it, like a South Park joke. Like, we told this to a friend of ours. So, like, it was just this time that Ethan and I were I think we have talked about this on the stream. We're, like, goofing. And we came up with a hypothetical DJ Brown Note, who is a DJ that only plays the brown note. And we were wondering, if you went to see him, would you wear no pants and just shit on the floor? Or would you wear a diaper? And then we were talking about that. We were crying, laughing, and we told it to our friend later. And he's like, "Oh yeah, from South Park." And we're like, "Sorry, what?"
Yeah, I don't really watch a lot of South Park, so
I don't watch South Park, and so I was like, "Wait, we're like Trey Parker and Matt Stone."
That's us. Yeah, Ethan and Spencer, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, and every movie we haven't seen is in time.
Yep,
that's it. Well, anyways, let me go back to my segue here. Speaking of in time, we're talking about the future in this episode, the future of menswear. And full disclosure, if
the amazing Criswell on this episode, tell us about the future.
That one's lost on me. I don't know what that one is.
Oh, you haven't seen Ed Wood yet, right?
No, not yet. No.
Okay, well, here's a little fun history lesson for everybody. The amazing Criswell was a Los Angeles like TV personality in the 50s who would just make a bunch of like really inaccurate predictions on TV.
Okay.
And he's in a bunch of Ed Wood movies.
Okay, like Plan 9 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I gotta watch it. Yeah, I know. I gotta watch Ed Wood. It's like movie. In time.
Good, cool clothes in it too.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be a Patreon episode one day.
So we, full disclosure, we have actually done this discussion on stream before, but if you weren't one of like the 15 people who were there watching it, it is unfortunately lost to you forever, due to a really random Twitch glitch where it just removes our audio, and I tried to get it back. Yeah, Twitch glitch, TGs. But it started off in our Discord a little bit, in our Patreon Discord. Feel free to join us. We do discussions on men's where people can submit topics, and one of them was submitted by our friend John, who said, what are our predictions of where #menswear is headed next? Will Drake start selling berets? Will RL maintain relevancy post Ralph, knock on wood? And will the Bullshot Book Club actually start reading books? And it's kind of a fun thing to kind of see, where things are going. The Drake's thing, right? Where I think that Drake's is coming out after, like, the rise of E.G., Evan Kenori wearing casual suits or like work suits, and they're starting to do some of that now. Lots of brands are kind of becoming like RL. Berets are being big, and we kind of took this kind of lighthearted like in initial discussion, and we combined it with the 15-minute. Well, I'm not unfortunately not yet a Blamo patron, but I did listen to the episode, the preview of when Jeremy talked to Dye Workwear, Derek Guy, and in that 15 minutes they talk a little bit about the quote resurgence of menswear, and a lot of people are really hopeful about it because we're coming out of work from home, whatever. People might be wanting to dress up more. And Derek says he doesn't believe that the resurgence of menswear is actually a real thing. It's a little bit, maybe, I might be taking words out of his mouth, but to me it sounds like, we're blowing it a little bit out of proportion, because I think it's, it's not going to be the same thing as it was in like 2009. Mm-hmm. And that's the purpose of this discussion. We're kind of diving into those two things, where we think brands are going, what we think about people returning to menswear. But let's start off with the resurgence of menswear. And I will say, like I said, I don't believe menswear is coming back. I really don't think it'll ever be like that, because it's, all these people are like.
So to be clear, again, you're talking about like when like menswear was like a big cultural thing.
Exactly.
Early 2010s. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And no, I mean, I was in the I've only been in Clubhouse like twice, by the way. And there is a great and again, I can only say great for the 2 times I've been in there, but it's like a menswear Clubhouse, which was started by Greg Lelouch of No Man Walks Alone. A couple of people were in it, and obviously, as he is a brand owner, a retailer of a lot of great brands that we all enjoy, he did ask about how people feel about dressing up and, returning to the office or whatever. And clearly there is still a difference here. Like, the price point of No Man Walks Alone is not the price point that Spencer and I can enjoy, at least in this stage of our lives. You can listen to the Money episode. But, a lot of the discourse is a little positive. Like, oh yeah, people there's a little bit of sentiment that they want to dress up after being at home for so long. You know, they want to. I think in our Twitch stream, someone brought up that like Twitter post where guys like he's retiring his sweatpants and he tacked it to the wall or something.
I think it is kind of like half and half, because I'm seeing a lot
Right.
of that, of people being like, I'm tired of, you know, like wearing pajamas or sweatpants or whatever all day. But then I'm also seeing a bunch of people being like, never going back to jeans again or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like it's 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends who you talk to, right? Because I've met a couple people who work in like offices, you know, like our lawyer friends who are like, yeah, you know what, like I don't really want to wear sweatpants anymore. And then you have people who maybe were like, you know, who are like interns or something, who were like forced to wear suits, or, you know, I mean, not forced, but you know, like they were encouraged dress codes and everything, and they're like, you know, now that there's relaxed, like, oh, I can't wait to just wear jeans or wear shorts to the office now, you know. And I think that Spencer and I are kind of also on the 50-50 because we don't like dress codes. We don't like, you know, we don't like that idea that, you know, you have to wear a suit, but we also like the idea of dressing up. And there's still that social aspect of it that, you know, that Derek kind of talked about, where it takes, you know, something that we've been missing is kind of like flexing on other people, or at least, you know, the camaraderie around dressing up. And that's kind of an important part of it. And it's still early to say. We're still recording this in early April. People are starting to get the vaccine. People are starting to go back to work and everything. We're at my work, we're talking about when we're going to go back. And, you know, clothing, again, like kind of goes both ways. But in terms of menswear, I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing where, as we've talked about a lot in the stream, classic menswear has a unique space in people's minds where it's tied to like connotations of like old money and class and lifestyle, even if it's not really there anymore, which you'll maybe hear in a future episode or on stream. It just, like, a suit represents so much to different people, and it's hard to say if people will want to be a part of that again, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you know, one thing that I talked about a little bit on the Lost stream, and that I could see happening, is just as time goes on, there is just going to be less and less monoculture in fashion. I mean, there's like less and less monoculture in general. But I think we're gonna get closer to a point where just like everything else, fashion becomes like a very, very, very individual thing, and people can just wear what they want, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily that everyone is going to want to dress up, quote unquote, in suits again. It's just that, and again, this is a big if, probably won't actually happen, but it could be something where people wear suits and it's not necessarily dressed up. I don't think it's going to be like, you know, pinstripe structured suits. It might be something closer to like, you know, the engineered garment suit or the game suit, whatever.
Yeah, the casual takes on it.
Yeah, just like a matching pant and jacket. That's
right.
Yeah. That's
and
where
you
we might end up.
You do see that, like we said, like not just engineered garments, but you know, people wearing like short coats and short pants, military stuff. And yeah, I really do think that that's probably maybe where it's gonna go. And I do think people also will enjoy wearing like tailor or soft tailoring. I think that'll maybe make it's already made kind of a mainstream comeback, you know, with Suit Supply, and I think like Uniqlo Easy Jackets are doing it as well, or they have been doing it. But that idea about, you know,
basically every mall place at this point sells like a quote unquote like travel suit or whatever,
or unstructured kind of a thing. Yeah, no, and I think that's good. I mean, guys still like to wear, you know, it's kind of a generational thing too, where it's going to be hard to see like the indie culture of kids trying to get into tailoring. Whereas, you know, maybe now like the millennial guys might, like maybe we're shifting out of the blue chinos with tan shoes kind of thing a little bit, but these guys are still wearing like they like wearing unstructured jackets. You see that a little bit. Like my dad still wears like an unstructured blazer every once in a while, you know, and he's kind of in that post menswear, you know, gingham, you know, check shirt, which, you know, blue chinos kind of a thing. And of course you have like those like midtown uniform guys, you know, maybe when they're not wearing their vests, they still wear like an unstructured jacket, you know, it's still that kind of a thing. Of course, there's also that safari jacket trend, you know, like Don Johnson in Knives Out wearing like the dad safari jacket with like
the wool tweed or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So
and
some
of course,
people
jungle jackets are getting big now.
Yeah. So there is still that idea that, what you wear, it doesn't have to be like, if you're not just wearing a hoodie, there's still like a jacket, pant, maybe like a button-up shirt that's still kind of happening. Yeah. But I do like what you said, Spencer, about like, not having monoculture and it being so like fractured in a good way. Like there's going to be a lot more subset. I mean, that's what #Menswear was, right? Like it was such a distinct niche from the business suit, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, okay, so before I get into some other stuff about menswear, I think that I just want to say I don't think it'll happen again because the original one happened at the right place at the right time. And I did say this in the Clubhouse thing with Greg because I apparently was the only one who was really talking. But it's like, Mad Men was there, the research, like the reboot of James Bond was there, mm-hmm. There was a lot happening in like 2006, 2007 to kind of, unfortunately, kind of bring this masculine energy back to dressing up, right? Like until then, you didn't really have like Office Space, right? Where this might be a little too cultural, right? But like kind of making fun of the whole office life. And then you had Mad Men, like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, suits are fucking cool, man. Like at an office smoking, whatever, James Bond tuxedos. You had that. You had Tumblr. You had and the rise of Tumblr, because Tumblr was still new, like 2006. You had the beginning of Instagram, like 2008, right? You had like Facebook just like exploding in 2009, 2010, all like social media really kind of became its own thing as #Menswear was happening, right? Mm-hmm. I think even for the Armory, in that episode on Blammo, Mark says that, he never really used it until Arnold Wong, who worked at a tire house, I don't know what he's doing now, but, Arnold is younger, and he goes, hey, Mark, you should post on Tumblr. And then as we know what happened, they exploded, all the fit pics and everything. And so, but now you don't really you don't go on to Tumblr and you see like a guy on a cobblestone street anymore. Now you see like anything you want on Instagram, social media. And you have a lot of people who are smarter than to trust the Explore page. I mean, you still have mm-hmm. a lot of Explore page outfits, but it's still, it's a lot more nuanced than that, and there's a lot of like different subgroups. So I don't really think that #Menswear and that idea will happen because now there's, again, not that like big cultural push. Like, okay, I have to dress up now. This is what YouTube's telling me to do. Yeah. I don't see Mad Men and everything.
Yeah, and you brought up Mad Men, and I don't think there has been like a cultural thing where like one piece of media has such a big and immediate influence on style than Mad Men did, because that hasn't really happened since, and I can't see that happening again. Because you brought you in the notes here, we have The Crown as an example, which a lot of people did, see The Crown. And,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like that was a lot more on the women's side, where now everyone just wants to dress like Princess Diana. But that does not have the staying power of Mad Men.
Yeah, I mean, you had a little bit where barber stuff jumped
Crown
up too,
didn't,
right?
After the latest season, the Crown, there weren't like a million different brands doing lookbooks and waxed cotton jackets and riding pants or whatever. In the same way that Mad Men, just everyone started making skinny suits and doing 60s, style lookbooks.
Right. I mean, and also like Mad Men came in hand with Tom Brown too. Like there was still mm-hmm. that kind of big deal. GQ was writing about it at the time, and nowadays, right? Like there are a lot of trends out there. There's like engineered garment stuff. There's, excuse me, take a shot. Like Armani suits are kind of coming back, like that kind of wide fit. But they don't have the staying power. They just don't. Yeah. They don't. Yeah, they might be in for a little bit, but then brands aren't fast enough, or if they do it, it's too late, or they just don't think it's worth it to kind of recreate, and then we move on to the next thing. I think even now, I don't even know what trends in fashion are now that are like that big of a deal, because if TikTok, and again, I know it's all still very, based on where you are, but you can still see now, like on the street in LA, you can still see the skinny suit next to like a wide suit, next to a guy wearing moto jeans, next to a guy wearing like raw hem Dickie pants or something like that. These are all coexisting now. Whereas before, these guys, if they wanted to look good, they would all wear the check shirt with the blue pants and the tan shoes, right? Or even then, like before, it was that and the turtleneck with like pants and the chain and the camel overcoat,
beige, the camel jacket.
But now those things are still here, combined with other things, and there's still that like also that fighting power, right? Where in classic menswear. Or men's fashion in general has this idea like, well, I don't want to be trendy. I gotta stay with what I am, and if I do a trend, I'm like not being authentic to myself. And we're gonna have an episode on authenticity, but I think that prevents that also kind of prevents things from kind of melding together, because now there is no set thing. Everyone wants to stay where they are, good or bad thing, and that contributes to a fractured, fashion culture where everything kind of just stays where you are. Like like I said, these guys still wear, like, as much as people hate them, people still wear moto jeans. That's still out there.
Man, I'm thinking about it now, and if everything gets more fractured and individualized, that might be good for acceptance of fashion, but it's going to be way harder for people, I think, to get into it. It's going to be way more overwhelming for people getting into dressing better.
I
think people were talking about this, like when Brooks Brothers or J. Crew or whatever, all those stores were going bankrupt. It's kind of nice to have kind of a basic store that sells like well-made things that anyone
can
go in.
You can go in there and kind of just pick whatever you want, and you'll look, quote, good, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
jumping off point.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of see this, because you already see that. Yeah, you already see that now, where people are so ingrained in what they're wearing is good that it makes it kind of harder. Like, they're just overwhelmed with all the different choices, and then they don't feel the need to kind of try and experiment. Like, that's why we still run into issues with guys saying, "Oh, well, your pants are too like tight," even though like there's a lot of examples of wide leg pants looking good out in the mainstream, but it's just like there's just so much out there. But yeah, I mean, one of the closing things for this research into menswear is, I will say, to give credit, and Jeremy said this in his podcast, where some people are choosing to get kind of dressed up again. As people get older, as people kind of get into this post-sneaker world where they realize, designer collabs aren't all that what they want, or it's too much to keep up with it, especially how mainstream collabs are getting lately, not just Supreme, but everything is doing some kind of collab. It's kind of good where classic menswear kind of just stays the same, where you said. And so if people can realize that, they kind of fall into it. Like Jeremy said that his friend who buys off-white Jordans was like, "Hey, where do I get like a DB Club blazer? Where do I get that bespoke made?" And that's kind of fun, and we do see that now. Like our friend Doug, he kind of mixes stuff now, but initially when I first met him, he said like, he used to like resell a lot of like sneakers and stuff, and then now he likes wearing but what he actually wears now is like the same like Cordovan penny loafers that he like thrifted, and like OCBDs and everything like that. There is that idea that some guys do like classic menswear as maybe not as a rebellion, but as kind of like a calming down point, where you don't, as your priorities shift somewhere else, especially right with like COVID, we're returning to real life, going back to the office, focusing on work. Maybe then, instead of like, okay, well, instead of buying all these collabs, buying whatever is cool, I can just buy a fucking blazer and chinos and loafers, and I can just sit there,
I will say another point. And again, we're at this point seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're still in the pandemic.
That's right.
We did kind of talk about this yesterday, but for right now, anytime I see people seems like a special occasion. And so, I mean, I'm gonna be. I think when we start going out again, like I'm gonna be dressing up slightly more, just because it's like, why not? Like, I'm seeing friends, I'm having a good time. I want to look. I want to look sharp. I want to look my best.
Well, I think
I feel like that's a thing that's, even if you're not as into menswear or fashion in general, that might be a common thing.
Right, and hopefully maybe after this, like we said earlier, the lesson is you're not dressed up. I mean, you're dressing up, but you're not dressed formally. You're just dressing to look good. And I think hopefully tailoring at this point, or as we get there, tailoring is seen as an option. Like we always keep saying, as instead of like, well, you gotta look formal, you gotta stunt, or you gotta look elegant. You can just, the choice is that you just happen to be wearing like a tailored garment. And and like I said, I think we had a bonus pod on it, but basically I'm in the same boat where, I wore tailoring a lot during quarantine. Maybe more than I should have, and I still wore a tie, but when we go out, I tend to make it like edgier now, like kind of like what I was before, like the kind of stuff that is a little bit about stunting on, like I said, like stunting in a good way where you're kind of like, you're peacocking a little bit. Maybe that's kind of the better word. It's like recently Spencer and I went to a bar, no, a brewery, because we're outside in a little corner. Like that was like, and like no one sat next to us, which was good.
It was kind of funny because like we were in their outdoor area and it was like, oh, this is so empty. And then like we walked in the parking lot and saw like the other part of the outdoor area. It's like, that's where all the people were. Okay.
Yeah, but it's okay. I mean, good for us, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, like I've on the weekends I typically wear like tailoring, you know, like you guys have seen on my Instagram. I still dress up, wear my custom suits and spear point collars. But on this side, I decided to wear jeans and Chelsea boots and a sport coat and like a sports shirt. And I still wore this stuff before, but it's like, oh, I can't wait to be the cool Ethan again and not the dapper Ethan, you know.
Yeah.
So hopefully people get that idea, because I mean I think we're seeing a little bit of it, but of course, like Spencer said, it's kind of 50-50 in terms of how you're approaching it. Maybe if you do like the idea of dressing up, you do want to try out tailoring. You know, I think my friend Adam is kind of in that now. Also, we've talked about him before, but you know, now as quarantine stuff ends, you know, he's got a girlfriend. He does want to wear like OCBDs and like loafers and jeans, and not what he wore like before, like a hoodie during quarantine, which is cool. And it's cool to know that he is able to kind of approach it without the formal, like you know, him and his girlfriend don't think the OCBD is like, oh, a dress shirt anymore. Like it's just the cool thing that he decided to put on, which is again, I hope that's what people like. But let's shift over now to the brand side and how we think brands are going to adapt in the future of this, because unfortunately, as things start to, as we've said before, menswear is not going to be at the same level. That just means that these brands are not going to be able to make the things that maybe that they used to, because the demand isn't there.
And as we also talked about, it's like we like when Brooks Brothers went out of business, this like English silk company lost like 40% of their business. I think Henrik brought this up. He would know the figure. We'll look it up. But yeah, shit like that is happening. Where a lot of menswear, like a lot of like mills or like leather workers or whatever, like these are all very old, very niche techniques that not a lot of people are doing anymore. And so as time goes on, you're not going to have the Scottish knitwear industry to make these really traditional knits or whatever that everyone wants to sell. Yeah,
because it's like...
And so that's the sad thing, is we're losing a lot of tradition just because the money isn't there anymore.
Yeah, you know, as people don't have to buy office stuff, then the Brooks Brothers doesn't have to buy cotton from these mills, and the mills go out of business, and then when things come back up, who's going to make the cotton for those shirts, you know?
Yes, exactly.
So it's really tough there. I mean, that's something that we don't really have any kind of discussion on. Not discussion, but like all we can do is be sad, you know? It's also I mean, like...
we can't do anything. I don't know enough about like the inner workings of the menswear trade to like...
Yeah.
I mean,
because... In that clubhouse, you know, all these guys are kind of hopeful, but it's also like no amount of cultural shift is ever gonna do. And menswear, like it sounds sad for me to say, but menswear is dying. It has been dying for like since the beginning of the golden era. Every year since then, people dress up less and less. People wear tailoring less and less, and that. All we can do is subvert the expectations of the roots about it and dress the way we want to, but that I do realize that is not going to save the industry, and there is nothing I can think of that will save it, you know, because the only other option is to force people to wear suits that will keep the mills alive, but that is not what we want, you know. And so if people aren't dressing up, what this typically looks like, right, is the brands are going to shift their focus and what they're putting out to something else, you know? And this is kind of where a big discussion of our stream was. We talk about the sameness of like ALD, Drake's, Noah, Rowing Blazers, and if we talk about any kind of trend, right, that's going on through menswear, it's kind of like this like New York skate meets prep kind of a thing, kind of very Ralph, like 90s Ralph resurgence, branded, you know,
this kind of look. It's kind of taking streetwear elements and putting it into menswear.
Right, which is kind of funny because streetwear was like an exaggeration and inspired by like menswear originally, like, like
Yeah.
baggy shorts and polo shirts and all that kind of shit, right? So yeah, it's just interesting to see because like the idea is that of course you can't wear a suit if you don't want to, and it's if you're perceiving it as stuffy, but you can wear a button-up shirt and chinos, and here's this lookbook from any of these brands that show you how to wear it without looking like a rich asshole or a guy who's trying too hard with a fedora and a top hat or something like that, you know. And I have in the notes here the streetwear resurgence, but I think this is kind of like the actual menswear resurgence where people are able to kind of see these things and realize, okay, well, this ALD lookbook, they're wearing carpenter pants and these wearing Dickies. They're not wearing, I don't know, the latest Adidas collaboration tracksuit, right? They're kind of, it's going in this other kind of workweary direction. And and these lookbooks are wearing those things that are kind of streetwear, kind of indie as well, but then with like two-tone loafers, like the Throwing Fits guys. I think Throwing Fits is a good example of this combination of where like that kind of menswear adjacent, streetwear adjacent look is going into. And I don't know if it's exactly inspired or brought on by COVID. We're saying, okay, well, if you can't wear the jacket, you just wear the button up. But I think it's half that and half of Throwing Fits in the post sneaker world, like I said, where people are being increasingly aware of all the collabs, post sneaker world stuff, that they want the classics, and these are a good way of, again, like doing classics with a little bit of a twist. And especially as thrifting gets bigger, archival fashion gets bigger, revisiting old stuff in general, like Spencer said on stream, where people are rewatching The Sopranos and COVID and everything. There's this nostalgia, right, about it, about kind of culture going on right now, and going back to all those 90s stuff. They're just, these brands are kind of redoing it, and I'm sure that as supply chain stuff gets faster, these brands are, maybe not super fast as like H&M, but they're able to kind of latch on to this idea, and that's why all these lookbooks kind of look the same. It's kind of like,
something I thought was interesting, and I brought this up on the stream, was that you see, and this is, again, menswear meets streetwear stuff. You see a lot of like menswear brands marketing like streetwear, like, like doing, how Nike announces a reissue of a sneaker, where all of a sudden you have Ralph Lauren being like, we're reissuing this sport coat first seen in catalogs in like 1971 or whatever. Where, all of a sudden like menswear places are doing archival pieces, which is interesting. I don't really think you saw that much before.
Yeah, usually it was like, like a special anniversary kind of a thing, but now it's kind of happening. Maybe it's because we've kind of reached a peak in fashion. Again, if you guys don't know about the post sneaker world thing, I would look it up with like some Throwing Fit stuff, but I think it basically means like for a while, the ultimate step for a brand to do was to collab with someone, and to kind of, that was like, because like high-end couture and like really crazy fashion stuff is still inaccessible to a lot of people just based on price point. And so you would like collab to make it there, right? Like you get like, I don't know, like Supreme X something, Dominoes or whatever, like that was kind of a cool signifier that is aspirational and people can latch onto. But it's in the past couple of years, it's become so saturated, and so designer focused and everything, that the only thing to do is to go look backward, right? People just kind of do what they do, and that's kind of when we wrote about like the marvelization of menswear. You kind of just do what's worked for you, and you just kind of keep doing it. And fashion is so new and so ever changing that it maybe we don't recognize it as much as we have with like Netflix shows and Marvel and movies and blockbusters. But the people, I mean, I've kind of noticed it, and I think that this is kind of what we've seen from all these lookbooks that kind of look the same, where they're reissuing stuff, they're being inspired by something like J. Crew made, they had a time where they remade their barn coat from the 80s, like from like 1980 something,
the J. Crew Always collection.
Yeah, that was short-lived.
All like reissues of. I think it's still around. It was at least around the entire time I was there, and I think they still do like tees and stuff, like heavyweight tees and rugbies.
Right. Well, it's kind of like, they're trying to recapture what, the vintage, because the vintage market's so big now, right? The Real, all Poshmark and Depop, is Poshmark a
and
thing?
you even see like big brands getting into reselling vintage from their own shit now.
Yeah,
like, a lot of brands have like buyback programs. They're getting in on the secondhand market.
That's right. And so, yeah, you have a little bit of that. You have people literally doing vintage, like Wooden Sleepers collaborating with a lot of these menswear brands to sell like the old J Press stuff.
He did LL Bean too, right?
LL Bean, that's right, yeah. And then you have the other side of people. Okay, well, if they're a new brand, they just kind of start styling themselves after it. And one aspect of the sameness is that all these brands are kind of in the same vein, doing the casual menswear thing, like maybe ALD and Noah and are kind of already in that vein of like the streetwear thing. But then you have brands like Drake's who are kind of dipping their shoes into that kind of that like merch
Doing
idea
a
well.
lot more casual stuff than you would typically see in lookbooks.
Yeah, like like they have those jersey knit tees now. They've got the game suits. Like basically, the game suits are like their only tailoring that you see in the lookbooks. They still make the classic stuff, but what's being put on marketing is typically like the more casual things. And then of course,
color block stuff too. They love the color block now.
Yeah. And the styling again is very similar. Again, very prep kind of streetwear takes on prep. I do remember and it's, of course, it's still like you're seeing what marketing works. That is still very clear. That's how marketing and advertising is. You kind of see and you do your own spin on what's connecting with an audience. But I remember like seeing, we've talked about this before, but like the photography is kind of getting similar now. Like a lot of the studio stuff, a lot of these like New York on the street stuff going on.
Every lookbook is there's like it's a collage. It's like a bunch of collage, and then there's one really like faded or like monochrome photo as the background.
Yeah,
and the photo is just of like nature.
And then they have like
old city street.
Yeah, they've like scanned in like pencils and like postcards and shit. Like that's literally so much of lookbooks now. And I remember in the Blamo episode too, they talk about how what's it called? Like the J Press, I guess, has like a new social media manager or whatever. I don't know if it's still ACL's firm, but like they did a shoot with Timmy Balboa, who used to be a part of the Drake's crew, and he's part of the Bullshot Book Club. And like, yeah, the photography is like him like on the street, with some girl. They're both wearing like rugby shirts tied around their waist, and it's like, it's kind of Drake's, right? And then you have like the Bullshot Book Club, right, where they're like, reading this book out wearing like a hoodie under tailoring, and they're like, what? You're catching me writing on here, and it's kind of Fred Castleberry-esque.
Fred? Yeah, I was gonna say, is Fred in the Bullshot Book Club? He's not, right?
He is. But I think it was still shot by somebody else. Yeah.
Okay, so he's not the one shooting it.
Yeah, and I don't think he shot the stuff for J Press either. But there's still that kind of vibe. It's still very. I mean, I have yet to see like an LA focusing, because all these brands are still very New York. Again, Wearing Blazers in New York, ALD is in New York, J Press is in New York.
It's the fashion capital of the world.
That's right. So it makes sense to kind of see all that kind of stuff, and it's weird because is this nostalgia? Is this like this kind of merch focus? And I do want to talk about merch in the future, because that's kind of like a big thing going on in menswear, the fake merch as a brand kind of a thing. Drake's has the haberdasher stuff. Roaring Blazers makes merch of like NBA stuff meets preppy stuff, So that's kind of like a big deal in menswear, where it's like the sneaker world, but it's more classic. You know what I mean? So they're finding a way to kind of capture that. But like we do see,
it's like, who needs a Chicago Bulls fucking sweatshirt when instead you can get a rugby shirt with the Chicago Bulls logo, or a scarf.
Yeah, and then that will supplant your like post COVID attire, where you want to be dressed up but like not really. Like, you can't wear a Bulls jersey or a snapback to work, but you can wear the rugby. That's kind of interesting. But I do want to say though that menswear is slowly catching up. The classic menswear is doing like collabs a little bit. Like you got like I think one of the original ones was the dye workwear tweed, like that silk tweed that he used to make, and then Permanent Style makes his own like Oxford cloth, and of course
the Negroni tweed.
The Negroni tweed, you know, the biggest influencer in menswear probably, you know, Matt Hranick has done a lot. He's got the Negroni tweed, which is actually a really great colorway. I really do like it.
I mean, I like how, like, I'm sure we'll talk more about this in the merch episode. I don't know if any of this counts as merch, but that is. Stuff like the Negroni tweed or a special like silk, you know, cloth, whatever. That's the cool way to do merch. That's a very cool way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But then you also see these other than Matt Hranick, you know, doing the stuff. Well, by the way, we should maybe have a boba tweed or something. I don't know. Purple tweed sounds crazy. Maybe like boba corduroy or something. I don't know. A tie would work.
Well, we could do. Mine would just be. Black milk tea with boba because I get the boring order, so it'll just like kind of a nice creamy medium brown.
Yeah,
and then you can get the taro.
Yeah, the taro. Yeah, I mean, I wish I can't get Thai tea because that's orange, which is a little too close to the Negroni tweed.
Well, how about this? It could be like a tan with like maybe darker brown flecks to simulate the boba.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's the milk tea tweed.
The milk tweed. That doesn't work. But then you also see like, you know, these classic menswear brands like, you know, collaborating with like Noah or RB, like Barber and everything, which is kind of a fun, you know, thing to see here. Maybe that's like a peak collaboration. You know, we're interested to see what happens there. Yeah, PC. Yeah. PC culture, man. Peak collab culture. But okay, so next I think right here is if the mainstream menswear is going in this very, you know, merch driven, casual, preppy meet streetwear kind of thing, I think something that Eric in the Discord brought up is like Asia is kind of like the dark horse in menswear because there is still that huge tailoring culture there. I mean, that's why some of the best dressed people at Pity are the Japanese sellers because they have it. And you know, for full context, right? These guys kind of approach dressing without the heritage culture of the West, right? You don't have like the old money thing. I mean you do have
they don't have that. They just like it's not the same thing there because they adopted all of this like
colonialism
like 70 years ago. Like,
yeah,
you know?
as markets opened up, right? Japan, you know, booming after in the post-war. Yeah, they started to wear suits, and they kind of did it. You know, you can read Ambitora, but it's a different thing to signal that you like American stuff than to be an American and do it because your dad did it, and your grandpa wore a suit, and your great-grandparents wore tuxedos to dinner. You know, it's a bit of a different vibe here, and of course we're generalizing, but you know, there is that. You know, that kind of fun thing where I think Asian cultures like Japan, China, the Philippines, Indonesia, tailoring is kind of just like a fashion thing there. It's just something that people do. I can't speak again. I've only been there a little bit, but and of course there are salarymen who have to wear suits there, but that's still kind of a big part of it.
But I mean, someone was saying that in China there's not the same like work uniform culture where most offices are very casual, right?
Maybe I don't remember that exactly, but I mean that sounds like it could be true. I mean, leave us a comment, leave us a message if you remember where that came from. But yeah, I believe it. I mean, it's still just, you know, so different that you have there. I mean, you know, going into like Beams or whatever and all these Japanese stores when I went there's still a lot of tailoring. Could just be the bias of where I went, but you know.
And going back to an earlier point about all these, you know, like traditional industries that support menswear failing, as Kyoshi has brought up, if Alden dips in popularity in Japan, they are over. And I imagine that might be the case for a couple other Western brands.
Yeah, I mean,
we better hope that they keep being into menswear, you know? Better hope that it stays popular over there.
Yeah, I think he said like if Japan stops buying like Shell Cordovan shoes, Shell Cordovan's going to stop happening because it's expensive to make. I mean, that's more. Yeah, you know, and it's like you have that where, you know, like I think J-Press for a while looked kind of shitty on their social media, but the J-Press Japan account was like so big, you know, it's so good. And it's kind of like this weird idea, you know, where lots of menswear guys have to use like ring jacket, right? Like that was kind of a big deal in hashtag menswear, where people realized early on that you couldn't get the cool stuff, even though, you know, Mad Men and Brooks Brothers, whatever, but you couldn't get the cool stuff from American made stuff. They had to go to Japan. You know, these brands are moving in that direction where even in production wise, right? We're like, that's why production moved from America, not just because it's cheaper, you know, in terms of like, you know, the auto industry or teching stuff, but like in terms of like well made quality stuff. Menswear brands had to go somewhere else because they just as interest in America, as I said, has been declining since literally the golden era every year since. You know, these other places just kind of do it better. Jeans,
and I mean, it's happened.
Are made in Japan.
Exactly. It's happened. I was gonna say it's happened with denim. Like this exact thing that we're talking about has happened with denim, where now there's like no denim being manufactured in the United States,
or
like
at least good
white, like White Oak Cone Mills or whatever. Cone Mills like is gone. All the best jeans are made in Japan now because there's just not the industry to support it here.
Right. And I think that people are going to have to fucking realize that, because, you know, I remember I was talking with, well, even when I was doing retail and they're like, oh, why should I buy these Japanese jeans? I'm like, well, because they're way better made than anything in America right now. But I know these, like 316, I think came out with this Indian made, like loose knit kind of shirt that you kind of see, right? Like the kind of indigo dyed whatever. Really cool stuff. You kind of see 18 East kind of stuff. You see, you know, lots of places kind of going in this direction, and it's hard because they told me, like, you know, their customers are not used to, like, oh, well, 316 is supposed to be made in America, hardcore denim stuff. What happened? Like, why are you guys going to India for this kind of stuff? And I'm sure the Western supremacy and American exceptionalism, it plays a big deal there, but it's still kind of like, you got to go where the quality is, where the designs are.
I'm sure someone brought this up on stream, but it's like, again, there's just not that same kind of like local artisanal specialty craftsmanship that you find. Like that's why brands are now doing, you know, it's like, you know, we these shirts or these scarves, whatever, are made by like African craftsmen using this ancient technique, or, you know, in India or Asia. And they're doing that because that just tradition doesn't exist in America anymore. I mean, there used to be like regional specialties and stuff like that here, but it just doesn't exist. So you have to go elsewhere for that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's why all the suits are made everywhere else, Italy, and not just in factories, but people have to go to these places to get bespoke tailoring, you know. And I'm sure it's still really hard to do an American made one. I mean, it's not like you can't, but it's going to be hard to sustain here, especially in America. Like I said, people just don't dress up as much, you know, in general. But that Indian thing, the Indian made, the loomed, like handmade knit stuff is kind of interesting, because I think a lot of inspiration is coming from elsewhere now too, not just like streetwear, but like you have like the 18E stuff, Evan Kenori, where it's kind of got like a slight, I don't want to say it's exotic, but like, you know, just not a traditionally American or Western kind of styling. And I think that that's cool, you know, and I think that's what happens. And I made this point in the stream where lots of Netflix content is like the same now, or like a algorithm stuff. And my dad's an example where instead of watching like American like action movies, he watches like Indian action movies and like Korean action movies, because they kind of keep that spirit alive. And maybe it's because it's kind of like a genre throwback, where like maybe like these Korean shows and movies are just kind of remaking old American stuff, but the new American stuff doesn't remake the, like, I'm talking about like old school, like 80s style kind of stuff like that, where like nowadays,
like over the top action.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's like, you know, you got to go where that is, right? And it's kind of like, I also made this point too, where, you know, America stopped using pop stars and boy bands, but the big thing was all K-pop, and that, like, and it was a new place for people to kind of attach this, like, you know, this hardcore fandom, you know, like, you know, when people like follow these things and have like, you know, their Instagram backgrounds and like accounts dedicated to these celebrities with like all these edits, it reminds me in like when I was a kid with InSync, and you have like that clear part on top of your folder with all those stickers, and it's like, we're just doing that again, but they're not American. And I think that's incredibly cool, and it shows you, like, you know, as things keep moving too far forward, you're gonna, you know, like we said with like brands, the thing to do is just kind of look to what's happened in the in the past, or even
Yeah.
further than recent history, and kind of just revive really old stuff, because that's what's kind of different. Like I've said this before about superhero movies or like James Bond, where I would love it if they took these characters and set them in the era that they were created, because I think that that's a kind of a fun way of putting a spin on it instead of being like
but
overly
again,
edgy, you know.
And this is again like a kind of the same thing as your Netflix point, but movies now, because there's such a big overseas market that there wasn't, they have to have universal appeal in a way that they didn't. So a lot of things that are unique culturally to America don't sell as well overseas, which is why I don't think we're seeing a lot of period pieces, which might not interest overseas audiences much, and we're not seeing as many like big mainstream comedy movies because humor does not translate well overseas typically.
Right. And it's such a weird thing, because I think that someone brought this up too, where movies, like single genre movies, are like a uniquely American thing, or like a Western thing, where like, you know, you've got like Parasite, which is like a multi-genre kind of a subversion, and that is kind of proof that you could have, you know, an expanded, you know, a more nuanced film kind of break out into the mainstream. But that's also, you got a lot of stuff going behind that too. You know, it's a foreign language, or at least to Americans, it's a foreign language film. But it's so commonplace in Korea for that kind of a thing to happen, right? And like the same thing with like, you know, why anime never really catches in America like in a mainstream way, because anime is much more nuanced than people think. But American cartoons are so singular that like you can't like fathom like drama and comedy all in one thing, you know, and from an animated show, you know. And
they should watch Rick and Morty.
God, yeah, only HighQ, HighQ people.
HighQ,
Yeah,
HighQ. I'm gonna smoke some weed with QAnon.
Yeah. Oh,
HighQ.
HighQ is also a Japanese. It's not spelled the way that you're thinking, but it's a Japanese. It's a volleyball anime, which is really good. But yeah, you know, I think that what has to happen in the future, as we kind of get close to kind of summing everything up, is, you know, it's like a balance between staying alive and finding what works so you can stay alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's, and as guys, as you know, people in the Discord, you know, not many of us work in the industry, but like we're mainly consumers. And one reason why I think Spencer and I, and if it comes off that we're cynical, it's because we are, because as people who are into vintage, we realize that these things, that clothing will go away and it'll be really hard to find what we really want.
And it's like, it does sound like cheesy and like very like, the good old days. But we've talked about this before, where when you start buying vintage suits from the 30s, it's like pretty unbelievable how well made the like very regular garments like that people were buying off the rack are. So like we got introduced seeing it's like, oh, there has been a decline. Like when we started getting, it's like obviously there's still like, don't get me wrong, there's still like incredibly high quality stuff out there, and we still love a lot of modern brands, but it's not as accessible. Or it's not as commonplace, that level of quality, as it once was.
Yeah, no, exactly. And even like stylistically, I mean, like we've said before, when tailoring was king, everything was based on tailoring, even casual stuff. And nowadays, you know, it's really hard to find that kind of mix. And so Spencer and I are used to just being very niche with our taste, and if it's gone forever, then it's gone forever.
Yeah.
I really think, I mean, like ties are probably what's gonna die. Like that's what's probably gonna be gone for sure. You know, only office people wear ties, and well, weddings, right? And I think we recall like Brio, which is a classic menswear store in China, in Beijing. He says that someone said that ties are basically decorations there. Like they're just there to like kind of show that they are a haberdasher, but not many people buy them, you know. And that's unfortunate, but I say like, oh man, I wish I could buy more, but I also haven't bought a tie in so long. It's also because I've had a lot of ties already, but I don't know, nothing's really exciting out there, you know. Even now, the only thing that I think will happen is that tailoring is going to go further and further to only being made to order. That's what's probably going to happen, because why waste the money on buying and taking up space in your store or your warehouse when people are not going to get it? And I think, it's a better investment if it's made for you. But then again, all these mills, not all of their stuff goes to bespoke. Again, a lot of it goes to ready to wear. So if the ready to wear section dies, are these mills going to still be able to produce what is needed for custom? So it's still kind of a scary thought. And again, I guess the only real ready to wear markets I think are still in Asian countries. Like lately, the only ready to wear stuff I bought is Ring Jacket, right? Everything else has been like custom through my friend Atelier Fugue, through Future and Hall Madden, through Ascot Chang shirts. So yeah, I really don't think that's what's gonna it's gonna work out like that. I mean, even the rise of D2C brands, right? They're not in a retail store anymore. They're direct to consumer. No. They're cutting out the middleman.
Yeah, they cut out the middleman. Do you know why clothes are so expensive? It's because of the middleman and their markups.
That's what Everlane told me.
Yeah. You should get rid of this middleman guy. I mean, it seems like everyone would be much happier if you just got rid of him.
Gotta kill that guy.
Get out of the middle, guy.
Yeah. But I'm also curious to see, like, is this exacerbated by COVID? It probably is. But I'm wondering if brands...
I think all of this would have happened. It's just been accelerated by COVID, by lockdown.
Right. I mean, I'm wondering if like all the stuff with Drake's, because even if they can do stuff quickly now, supply chains again are better than they were in the 90s or 2000s. But I wonder, was this always what Drake's wanted to do as the focus of the lookbooks? Was it always going to be the t-shirts, the game suits, and whatever, or is that just a reaction and a shift from the COVID thing, right? I mean, I'm sure it would happen eventually, but I'm curious, again, how fast it would have been.
Yeah.
But then it's also cool on the flip side to see these brands do a lot of tailoring stuff. I mean, I think I mentioned on stream, Fear of God did a like a lookbook, and a lot of it had like tailoring and cricket sweaters, I think, and cable knits, and that's kind of a big thing. As our friend Chuck said, cricket sweaters might be like the latest trend, in menswear. Just like how like the short coat was kind of a thing. I think the cricket sweater, like, as kind of like a fun throwback. It's casual, it's practical, it's kind of preppy when you got in very like 90s Ralph, that kind of idea. It's still there. So, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be trends, but I don't know how long it's going to last. Like we said, these things are often so quick in the lexicon of menswear and fashion, and then they just kind of leave on to like whatever the next thing is. Or it's just incredibly niche that it doesn't really catch on in general in the mainstream. Because, like you said, it's all fractaled, right? Fractured Earth. Is that a thing? No, that's hollow. It's Hollow Earth.
Hollow Earth from Godzilla v Kong, or is it Kong v Godzilla?
I think it's Godzilla v Kong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that the Godzilla franchise is like a Hollow Earth franchise. Like it's a pro Hollow Earth movie.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I think Fractured Earth is from the Aether storyline, because at the end of Black Ops 2, you launch rockets at the Earth to destroy the zombies, but then it turns out it just makes it worse, because then Agartha spills out from inside. I think you
don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I think the Aether storyline is also Hollow Earth. I think Agartha is inside the Earth, so then when you blow it up, like, it releases the dark Aether into the world. Look up the zombie storyline, by the way. But I think the last point here, right, is worst case scenario, the suit in the mainstream is just a wedding. It's like a wedding dress, right? Like,
yeah, it's like something you drop a ton of money on once, and that's it.
Yeah, and it still gets bigger. I mean, and people still buy them. That's literally every person that Kiyoshi has as a client is getting married. Like that's basically what it is. You don't really have not only is there less business guys doing it, but there's also like the Ethans of the world who buy custom clothing to approximate the image in their head. That is a very small minority of any kind of purchase of tailoring and ties and button-ups and everything like that. It's so niche. The hashtag menswear cannot save menswear in general. Like that's not what's gonna happen.
It's I think it's like if you're in menswear, I think it's easy to have an inflated opinion about how much people know about menswear or care about it just because you see it a lot.
Right.
But it's like, there's like 3,000 people who are like us in the whole world, and that's about it.
Yeah, no, it's really, I know that because menswear, you connect with the shop owners, you connect with these people, and you want to be hopeful, but I mean, get off your high horse, man. It's dead. Like as much as we can be in the rooms that matter, the rooms are small, and the rooms that we have do not have the purchasing power to save it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's still okay. Like Hertling was gonna go out of business for a while, and then they came back, right? And they were able to kind of jumpstart that. Shirt makers shift into making the PPE stuff, and these places are starting to go back to business like normal. So maybe we're just being overly cynical again. We're like vintage where we just realize that what we like is rare, and it's okay that people aren't going to be into it. Like, it's just, but yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. I mean, in terms of the outside stuff too, right? Camp Friendly Pines. That's the peak thing of like kind of also being into that kind of streetwear meets menswear, because it's so, I love the brand. Why this cool? But it's like going from Slow West and then being basically what looks like an ALD lookbook meets Noah meets Drake's, all the stuff kind of combined in, also shot in New York,
like high-end LL Bean stuff.
Yeah, it's still kind of showing that's kind of like the current direction. I mean, and it's very throwing fits too. Like green camp mocks made by Yucatine with like a fun like beacon blanket style like camp shirt with literally Camp Friendly Pines on the back there. With like a dad cap. It's that whole thing. It's the peak. And I wonder if what's the sad head aesthetic? When are we gonna get our mainstream throwing fits treatment, man? Come on, where's our?
Yeah, we need to do. I wanna do a collab with somebody. Someone collab with us. I don't know if it'll sell out, but
as much as we love our Clark and Barba, which makes our bags, which I do use, it's proof that as much as we love to do a collab, I don't think we're able to move product, man. I don't think we're that.
Let's not say that. Just that was a prank. We're actually able to move a lot of product.
The Discord bought the Mad King George punk rock hat, right? Jason's actually sold out of those things, so we can sell to our friends.
We can sell to our friends. So if you own a brand out there and would like to collab with us, we will sell so much product that your head will spin. So please take us on.
That's right. Yeah, close that fridge.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this kind of discussion episode. I mean, it's kind of goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about, how we approach clothing, and this is kind of what we think about clothing in general.
This is what we think about.
Yeah. That's all I think about.
Yeah.
Call back. But yeah, I think, I don't know if we'll do another stream topic on this, because I'm sure other people have.
We already did one.
We already did one, but maybe we'll have to do a follow-up or something. I don't know. But yeah, feel free to look at the show notes on this, or the essay, the brief one that I've written in collaboration with myself, actually, on this topic. But yeah, we hope that you join in the conversation, because this stuff happens a lot.
Please do.
If you go to our patreon.com/styleanddirection, $5 a month, it will get you access to our Discord, where we do lots of stuff like this. We talk about this a lot on stream, in the chats. There's lots of different channels out there, lots of clothing going around, not just from the shopping links that we all find, but from our literal closets.
Yeah, people, it's spring cleaning, people.
That's right. It's time to get rid of the clothes that you don't wear and give them to someone else,
And that's what's happening.
And also, we want to say thank you to our Sadcast fanatics, our top tier patrons who give us $10 a month, and we say your names. So thank you to Austin Malott, Shane Curry, Philip Gagard, Audrey Jessica, and Jeremy Ostreicher. Thank you very much. But Spencer, what can you do if you don't want to do that?
Well, I mean, of course, you can go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review if you write something. If you write a little review, that would be helpful. If not, just leave us the 5 stars. That'll speak for itself, I'm sure.
Yeah, the stars speak for themselves.
All the stars are here. It's a little Norm Macdonald for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, leave us a review. That helps us out. That helps. Apple will recommend it to more people. And we don't pay for advertising, so that's word of mouth, and is basically the only way that we can get a new audience.
Patreon is what pays us for me to do the social media content. So that's the only paid advertising. That's just in-house content.
Yeah, exactly.
So feel free to also share. Follow us on Instagram. Sound Direction all spelled out on Instagram. I'm at Ethan M. Wong.
I'm at Spencer DSO.
And thank you to our producers, Matt and MJ, for bearing with us through and also listening.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, going through this literal conversation twice because they were there during the original stream. And also thank you to, I know they didn't pay for it, but I think thank you to Henrik and Eric for contributing to the notes of our discussion today and contributing to the original stream on this topic. It really helped us kind of flesh this stuff out. Yeah. We'll see you guys in the next one. Oh yeah, we stream twice a week, 8 p.m.
Wednesday, Saturday,
8 p.m.
Saturday, 8 p.m. Pacific.
That's right.
Wednesday we game. Saturday we will have a menswear discussion.
That's
so please join in.
That's right. We'll join in the conversation. Tap in tap in. You know,
tap in
and close that fridge. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.